Amelia stood at the front door of her own home, her key refusing to turn in the lock. After 3 days in Chicago closing the biggest deal of her career, all she wanted was to collapse on her own couch in her own living room. But the lock had been changed. Through the window, she could see strangers sitting at her dining table. A woman she'd never met was serving dinner on the china plates Amelia's grandmother had left her. 3 children ran through the hallway where Amelia's family photos once hung. Instead, unfamiliar faces smiled down from the walls. Her phone buzzed. Julian's text was short and cold, "Come to the back door." Amelia walked around the villa she had inherited from her grandmother 5 years ago. The same villa where she and Julian had planned to raise their own children. The same villa where she had poured her heart into every renovation, every garden bed, every carefully chosen piece of furniture. Julian opened the back door before she could knock. His face held no warmth, no explanation, no apology. Behind him, she could hear laughter and children playing sounds that should have filled her with joy but instead felt like knives in her chest. "What's going on?" Amelia asked, though part of her already knew the answer would destroy everything. "I gave the house to Patricia and her family," Julian said, referring to his sister. "They needed a place to live, and this house is too big for just us anyway." Amelia stared at him. "You gave away my house. My grandmother's house. It's our house, Amelia. We're married. What's yours is mine, and I decided this was the right thing to do. Patricia has 3 kids and they've been struggling since her divorce. This house can fit all of them. This house is mine. My grandmother left it to me specifically. You know that." Julian shrugged. "Well, it's theirs now. Patricia already changed the locks and moved all their stuff in. They're settled." Amelia felt the world spinning around her. "Where am I supposed to live? You travel so much for work anyway. Get a condo or something smaller. You don't need all this space." The casual way he dismissed her life, her home, her inheritance made Amelia's hands shake. This was the man she had loved for 8 years, married for 5. The man who had held her when her grandmother died, who had promised to honor the memory of the woman who raised Amelia when her parents couldn't. "I want them out," Amelia said quietly. "That's not happening. They're family, Amelia. Blood family. They need this more than you do. I am your family. I'm your wife." Julian looked at her with something that might have been pity. "You're barely here anyway. Always working, always traveling. Patricia will actually live here, make it a real home with real family in it." Amelia realized in that moment that she was looking at a stranger. This wasn't the man she married. Or maybe it was, and she had been blind to who he really was all along. "I'm calling the police," she said. "Go ahead. I'm on the deed too, remember? I had every right to invite family to stay here. And they're not guests anymore. I transferred my half of the ownership to Patricia yesterday. So technically you're the one who doesn't belong here anymore." The words hit Amelia like a physical blow. She stumbled backward, her mind racing. How was this possible? How had he done this without her knowledge? "You can't transfer property without my signature," she said. Julian smiled, but it wasn't the smile she had fallen in love with. This smile was cold and calculating. "Actually, I can. Turns out there are ways around that when you know the right people." Amelia pulled out her phone and dialed 911, but Julian was right. When the police arrived an hour later, they explained that without clear proof of fraud, this was a civil matter that needed to be handled in court. Patricia showed them documents that appeared to give her family the right to be there. As the police car drove away, Amelia stood on the sidewalk looking at her own home, the home where strangers now lived, where her belongings had been packed into boxes and left by the garage like trash. "You have until tomorrow to get your things," Julian called from the front door. "Patricia wants to redecorate anyway." That night, as Amelia sat in a hotel room with only the clothes in her suitcase, she made a decision that would change everything. She wasn't going to beg. She wasn't going to cry. She wasn't going to let Julian and his family destroy her life. She was going to destroy theirs instead. 2 weeks earlier, Amelia had been standing in this same hotel room preparing for her business trip to Chicago. She remembered calling Julian to say goodbye, remembered him telling her he loved her and to be safe. She remembered believing him. Now, sitting on the same bed with legal documents spread around her, she was seeing their entire marriage through different eyes. Every conversation, every decision, every moment when she had trusted him completely. The villa had been her sanctuary long before Julian entered her life. Her grandmother, Rose, had bought the land in 1985 with money she saved working double shifts as a nurse for 30 years. Rose had designed every room herself, planted every tree in the garden, laid every stone in the walkway with her own hands. When Rose got sick, she made Amelia promise something, This house is your independence, baby girl. Don't ever let anyone take that from you. Men come and go, but land is forever. Amelia had been 22 then, fresh out of college and working her first job at a marketing firm. She hadn't understood why her grandmother was so insistent about keeping the house in her name only. Rose had lived through a time when women couldn't even open bank accounts without their husband's permission, and she was determined that Amelia would never be that vulnerable. "Promise me," Rose had said, gripping Amelia's hand with surprising strength despite the cancer ravaging her body. "Promise me you'll never put a man's name on this deed. This house is your safety net. It's your power." Amelia had promised, and she had kept that promise. When she married Julian 3 years later, she had kept the villa in her name alone despite his requests to add him to the deed. He had seemed to understand then, had even said he admired her independence. Now she realized he had been planning this for years. Her phone rang. Rebecca Martinez, the lawyer she had hired that morning, was calling with her first findings. "Amelia, I have some bad news and some worse news," Rebecca said without preamble. "The bad news is that someone did forge your signature on transfer documents. The worst news is that they did a very good job of it." "How is that possible?" "Professional job. Someone who knows what they're doing had access to samples of your real signature and practiced until they could replicate it perfectly. The notary stamp appears legitimate too, which means either they bribed a real notary or they know someone who can forge official seals." Amelia felt sick. "So Patricia legally owns half my house?" "Not exactly. The transfer documents give Julian the right to make decisions about the property, but they don't actually transfer ownership to Patricia. It's more complicated than that, and it's definitely fraud. But proving it and getting immediate relief are two different things." "How long will this take?" "Months, maybe longer. And that's if we can prove the forgery definitively. Meanwhile, Julian's sister has possession of the property, and getting someone out of a house is never quick." Amelia closed her eyes. "What about my things? All my furniture, my grandmother's jewelry, her photos? We'll file an emergency motion for you to retrieve your personal belongings, but Amelia?" Rebecca paused. "I have to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Is there any chance Julian has access to your other accounts? Business accounts, savings, anything?" The question hit Amelia like ice water. Julian handled their household finances. He had access to their joint checking and savings accounts, but more importantly, he was listed as an emergency contact on her business accounts. Her successful marketing consultancy had grown rapidly over the past 3 years, and she had trusted Julian to help manage the administrative side while she focused on clients. "Oh God," Amelia whispered. "What is it?" "He has access to everything. My business accounts, my retirement funds, everything. He said he was helping me by managing the paperwork while I traveled. We need to check those accounts immediately. Do you have online access?" Amelia grabbed her laptop with shaking hands. Her business checking account, which should have had nearly $200,000 from recent client payments, showed a balance of $3,000. Her savings account was empty. Her retirement fund had been closed entirely. "Rebecca," Amelia said, her voice barely a whisper, "he took everything. How much are we talking about?" Amelia quickly calculated in her head. Between her business earnings, personal savings, and retirement funds, Julian had accessed nearly $500,000. "Everything I've worked for my entire adult life," she said. "It's all gone." For the first time since this nightmare began, Amelia started to cry. Not just for the money, though that was devastating enough. She cried for the years she had spent building a life with someone who had been systematically planning to destroy her. She cried for her grandmother, who had tried to protect her from exactly this situation. She cried for the trust that had been shattered so completely she wasn't sure she would ever be able to trust anyone again. But as she cried, something else was building inside her. Something harder and more determined than grief. Julian had made a mistake. He had been so focused on taking everything from her that he hadn't considered what she was capable of when she had nothing left to lose. He was about to find out. Rebecca's law office was nothing like the corporate lawyers Amelia was used to dealing with in her business. This was a small practice in a converted house, with mismatched furniture and coffee stains on the carpet. But Rebecca Martinez had something the expensive downtown lawyers didn't have. She was furious on Amelia's behalf. "I've seen this before," Rebecca said, spreading bank statements across her desk. "Men who think they're smarter than the system, who think their wives are too trusting or too busy to notice what's happening to their own money. How did I not see this?" Amelia asked, staring at months of withdrawal she had never authorized. "How was I so stupid?" "You weren't stupid. You were in love with someone who was systematically lying to you. There's a difference. Rebecca pulled out a thick folder. I've been doing some research on your husband and his family. Want to know what I found? Amelia nodded, though she wasn't sure she was ready for more bad news. Julian's sister Patricia has declared bankruptcy twice in the past 10 years. Both times, assets mysteriously disappeared before creditors could claim them. His brother-in-law Tony has been investigated for insurance fraud 3 times, though never convicted. And Julian himself has had his real estate license suspended twice for irregular transactions. I never knew any of this, because they're good at hiding it. But here's the interesting part: every time one of them gets in financial trouble, the others rally around to help. They move money, transfer property, create shell companies. It's a family business. Amelia felt a chill run down her spine. You think this was planned from the beginning? I think Julian targeted you specifically because you had assets they wanted. A successful business, inherited property, and most importantly, you travel frequently for work, which gave him unsupervised access to your finances. The thought that her marriage had been a lie from the very beginning was almost too much to bear. But Rebecca wasn't finished. There's more. I hired a private investigator yesterday. Don't worry about the cost. We'll get it back from them eventually. Julian has been having an affair with his coworker Nina Rodriguez for at least 8 months. They've been using your money to pay for hotel rooms, expensive dinners, even a weekend trip to Miami last month. Amelia stared at the photographs the investigator had taken. Julian and a beautiful woman with long dark hair, laughing over champagne at a restaurant Amelia recognized. She had eaten there with Julian just a few months ago for their anniversary. He had paid with a credit card linked to her business account. He used my money to take another woman to our anniversary restaurant, she said quietly. Men like Julian always get careless when they think they're winning, Rebecca said. And that's going to be his downfall. What do you mean? Rebecca smiled, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Amelia felt a spark of hope. Julian made several mistakes. First, he moved too fast. If he had been smarter, he would have slowly siphoned money over years, small amounts that you might not notice. Instead, he got greedy and took everything at once, which creates a clear paper trail. Second, he involved too many people. Patricia, Tony, Nina, the notary who helped forge your signature, probably others. The more people involved in a fraud, the more likely someone is to make a mistake or get scared and talk. Third, and most importantly, he underestimated you. He thinks because you trusted him before, you'll be too heartbroken or too confused to fight back effectively. Rebecca leaned forward. He's wrong about that, isn't he? Amelia thought about her grandmother, who had worked double shifts for 30 years to buy that house. She thought about the business she had built from nothing, working 18-hour days and sleeping in her office during the early years. She thought about every sacrifice she had made to build the life Julian had stolen from her. Yes, she said firmly. He's very wrong about that. Good. Because what we're going to do next requires you to be strong, smart, and absolutely ruthless. Are you ready for that? Amelia nodded. First, we're going to freeze every account Julian has access to. I've already started the paperwork. By tomorrow morning, he won't be able to access a penny of the money he stole. Second, we're going to file criminal charges for forgery, fraud, and theft. This isn't just a divorce anymore, Amelia. This is a criminal case. Third, we're going to use his affair against him. In this state, adultery affects property division in divorce proceedings. Nina's employer should also be very interested to know that their employee has been participating in fraud. And finally, Rebecca's smile turned predatory, we're going to let Julian think he's winning right up until the moment we destroy him. That night, Amelia sat in her hotel room making lists. Lists of every account Julian had access to, every piece of property they owned together, every person who might have information about his illegal activities. She also made a list of every lie he had told her, every time he had manipulated her trust, every moment when she should have seen what he really was. Tomorrow the real work would begin. Tomorrow she would start taking back everything Julian had stolen from her. But tonight, she allowed herself one last moment of grief for the marriage that had never really existed, and the man she had loved who had turned out to be a stranger. Then she put the grief away forever. The next morning, Amelia woke up to 17 missed calls from Julian. She let them all go to voicemail, then listened to them while drinking coffee and taking notes. The first few messages were angry. What did you do to our accounts? I can't access anything. Then confused, Amelia, there must be some mistake. Call the bank and fix this. Then desperate, please call me back. We need to talk about this. Patricia's kids need groceries. By the final message, Julian's voice had changed completely. Gone was the cold, dismissive tone from 2 days ago. Now he sounded panicked. Amelia, please. I know you're upset about the house, but freezing our accounts hurts Patricia's family too. Those kids don't deserve this. Call me. Amelia deleted all the messages without responding. Rebecca had been right. Julian was only as confident as his access to money allowed him to be. Her phone rang again. This time it was Rebecca. The investigator found something big, Rebecca said without preamble. Can you meet me at my office in an hour? When Amelia arrived, she found Rebecca with a man in his 50s wearing a rumpled suit and a satisfied expression. Amelia, meet Detective Frank Morrison. He specializes in financial crimes, and he's very interested in your husband's activities. Detective Morrison shook her hand. Mrs. Sterling, I've been tracking Julian's family for 2 years. They've been running sophisticated financial scams across 3 states, but we've never been able to make anything stick. Until now. He opened a laptop and showed Amelia a series of bank records and property transfers. Julian isn't just stealing from you. Over the past 5 years, he's helped his family defraud at least 12 other people out of their homes and savings. They have a system. What kind of system? Julian finds the targets usually successful women who travel for work or have inherited property. He builds relationships with them, gains their trust, gets access to their finances. Meanwhile, Patricia and Tony handle the paperwork side, forging documents and bribing officials to make fraudulent transfers look legitimate. Amelia felt sick. How many women? That we know of? Well, that we suspect. Probably twice that many. You're not the first successful woman Julian has married, Amelia. You're just the latest. The room spun around her. He was married before? Twice. Both times to women with significant assets. Both marriages ended with the women losing everything and Julian's family gaining property and money. Detective Morrison showed her photographs of 2 other women. Both were successful professionals, both beautiful, both looked devastated in their police report photos. Where are they now? Sarah Chin is working as a waitress in Portland, trying to rebuild her credit. Linda Williams moved back in with her parents in Ohio. Julian's family destroyed their lives so completely that neither woman has recovered financially. Amelia stared at the photographs. These women looked like her: confident, successful, independent. And Julian had targeted all of them for the same reason. Why hasn't he been arrested? Because he's smart about it. He makes sure the marriages are legal, he gets legitimate access to accounts, and he's careful about the forgery. By the time the women realize what's happening, he's already moved the money through so many accounts and shell companies that it's nearly impossible to trace. But you said this time is different? Detective Morrison smiled. This time Julian got sloppy. Maybe because you have more money than his previous targets, maybe because he's getting overconfident. But he made mistakes. Rebecca pulled out another folder. The private investigator followed the money trail. Julian didn't just steal from you, he's been using your accounts to funnel money to his family's other schemes. Your business account was used to make payments to shell companies that don't exist, to pay bribes to officials, even to buy property in other states that Julian's family then sold to new victims. Which means, Detective Morrison continued, you're not just a victim anymore. You're a witness to ongoing criminal enterprise. And that gives us the evidence we need to bring down the entire family. Amelia felt something she hadn't experienced in days: hope. What happens now? Now we build a case that will put Julian and his family in prison for a very long time. But I need you to do something that might be difficult. What? I need you to pretend that nothing has changed. Julian can't know that we're investigating him. If he gets spooked, he'll disappear and we'll lose our chance to help all the other women he's hurt. Rebecca leaned forward. It means going back to him, Amelia. Pretending to forgive him, pretending to work things out. Can you do that? Amelia thought about Sarah Chin serving tables in Portland, about Linda Williams living with her parents, about the 11 other women whose lives Julian had destroyed. She thought about her grandmother's house, where Patricia's children were sleeping in beds bought with stolen money. She thought about Nina, laughing over champagne paid for with Amelia's earnings. Yes, she said firmly. I can do that. It might take weeks or even months to gather all the evidence we need. I don't care how long it takes. Detective Morrison closed his laptop. One more thing, Amelia. When this goes down, it's going to be big. National news big. Julian's family has been operating in multiple states, stealing millions of dollars. Are you prepared for that level of attention? Amelia had spent her entire career helping companies manage their public image during crisis situations. She knew how to handle media attention, how to control a narrative, how to turn public scrutiny into an advantage. "Detective Morrison," she said, "I've been preparing for this my entire professional life. I just didn't know it until now." As she left Rebecca's office, Amelia's phone buzzed with another message from Julian. "Please come home. We can work this out." For the first time in days, she texted him back, "I'll be there tonight. We need to talk." Julian had no idea that when she walked through that door, she would be wearing a wire. Amelia sat in her car outside the villa for 10 minutes, steadying her breathing and running through everything Detective Morrison had taught her about wearing a recording device. The small wire was hidden beneath her blouse, so tiny she kept forgetting it was there until she moved wrong and felt the tape pull at her skin. "Remember," Morrison had said during their afternoon training session, "act like you're heartbroken but willing to forgive. Let Julian think his manipulation is working. The more comfortable he gets, the more likely he is to say something incriminating." Now, looking at her grandmother's house with its windows glowing warmly in the evening light, Amelia felt a surge of rage so powerful it almost broke her resolve. Inside those walls, Patricia's family was living off stolen money, sleeping in beds Amelia had paid for, eating food bought with her grandmother's inheritance. But she couldn't think about that now. She had to focus on the performance. Julian opened the front door before she could knock, his face a carefully composed mask of relief and remorse. "Amelia, thank God. I was so worried when you wouldn't answer my calls." He reached for her and she had to force herself not to pull away from his touch. Instead, she let him embrace her, let him stroke her hair the way he used to when she was upset about work. "I'm sorry about the accounts," he said quietly. "I know freezing them was your way of getting my attention and it worked. We need to talk about all of this." Amelia pulled back and looked at him. "Julian, I don't understand what's happening. This isn't like you." I know, and I'm sorry. Come inside." Patricia took the kids to McDonald's so we could have privacy. As they walked through the front door, Amelia had to bite her tongue to keep from screaming. The living room had been completely rearranged. Her grandmother's antique furniture was gone, replaced with Patricia's cheap modern pieces. The family photos on the mantel were all of Patricia's children, as if Amelia had never existed here at all. "Where is my grandmother's furniture?" she asked, her voice barely controlled. Julian looked uncomfortable. Patricia needed to make the space work for her family. "Don't worry, your stuff is safe in storage." "My stuff?" "Our stuff. You know what I mean." They sat on the couch that used to be in Patricia's apartment, and Julian took Amelia's hands in his. "I know this looks bad," he said. "I know I handled this all wrong. But I want you to understand why I did it. Then explain it to me." Julian launched into what was clearly a rehearsed speech about family loyalty and Patricia's desperate situation after her divorce. He talked about the children needing stability and how the villa was too big for just him and Amelia anyway. "But this was my grandmother's house," Amelia said, letting her voice break slightly. "She left it to me specifically. I know, and I should have talked to you first. But you're always traveling, always working, and Patricia needed help immediately. I thought once you saw how happy the kids were here, you'd understand." It was a masterful performance. Julian sounded sincere, apologetic, reasonable. If Amelia hadn't known the truth about his previous marriages and the systematic way he had stolen from other women, she might have believed him. "What about our accounts?" she asked. "Julian, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars missing." For just a moment, Julian's mask slipped. She saw something cold and calculating flash across his face before he recovered. "That's more complicated," he said. "I've been helping Patricia and Tony with some business investments. Real estate opportunities that couldn't wait for lengthy discussions." "You used my business money for investments without telling me?" "I was going to tell you when you got back from Chicago. The returns are already looking good, you'll actually make money on this." Amelia let tears come to her eyes. It wasn't hard, she was genuinely devastated, just not for the reasons Julian thought. "I feel so lost," she whispered. "I come home to find strangers in our house, all our money gone, and you're talking about business investments like this is normal." Julian moved closer and pulled her against his chest. "I know this is a lot to process, but I need you to trust me like you always have. Have I ever made a decision that wasn't good for both of us?" The question was so absurd that Amelia almost laughed. Instead, she nodded against his shoulder. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we work together to fix this. You unfreeze the account so I can manage the investments properly, and we find you a nice condo closer to the airport since you travel so much. Patricia and her family can stay here and take care of the property. And we stay married?" Julian pulled back and looked at her with what appeared to be genuine affection. Of course we stay married. I love you, Amelia. This is just a rough patch. As he said it, Amelia's phone buzzed with a text message. Julian glanced at it automatically and his face changed completely. The message was from Nina. Can't wait to see you tonight. Should I bring the wine? Julian went very still. Who is Nina? I don't know, Amelia said truthfully. Wrong number, I guess. But Julian was staring at the phone with an expression Amelia had never seen before, pure panic. Julian, she said softly. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, he said quickly, but his voice was strained. Just someone I work with. I should probably call her back and let her know she has the wrong number. Amelia watched him struggle to compose himself, watched him try to figure out how much she knew and how much she suspected. This was the moment Detective Morrison had prepared her for, the moment when Julian's own guilt would make him careless. Actually, she said, there's something else I need to tell you. Julian went very still. I hired a lawyer yesterday. Just to understand my options, you know? I was so confused about the house and the money that I needed someone to explain what was happening. What kind of lawyer? Just a divorce attorney. Rebecca Martinez. She seemed nice. Julian's face went completely white. What did you tell her? Just the basic situation. About the house and the missing money. She said it might be complicated to sort out since we're married, but that there are ways to protect my business assets. Julian stood up abruptly and began pacing the room. Amelia, you can't trust lawyers. They just want to make money by destroying marriages. Whatever she told you, it's not true. She didn't tell me anything except that I should talk to you directly. Good. That's good. Julian was clearly trying to think several steps ahead. Did you sign anything? Give her any documents? Just a basic retainer agreement. Why? Julian forced a smile that looked more like a grimace. No reason. I just want to protect our privacy during this difficult time. Amelia's phone buzzed again. This time the message was from Rebecca. Got everything we need. You can come home now. Julian didn't see this message, but Amelia stood up anyway. I should go back to the hotel, she said. I need time to think about everything you've told me. Stay here tonight, Julian said quickly. We have a guest room you can use. I want to keep working through this together. I think I need space right now. Julian grabbed her arm, not hard enough to hurt but firm enough to stop her from leaving. For a moment, his mask slipped completely, and Amelia saw something that made her blood run cold. Amelia, he said, his voice low and controlled, I think it would be better if you stayed here tonight. It wasn't a request. Amelia had been in enough high-stakes business negotiations to recognize a threat when she heard one, even when it was delivered in a calm, reasonable tone. Julian's grip on her arm was light, but his message was clear. She wasn't leaving until he decided she could. Of course, she said, keeping her voice steady. You're right. We should keep talking. Julian's smile returned, but it didn't reach his eyes. I'll make us some dinner. Patricia left groceries. As he moved toward the kitchen, Amelia caught sight of herself in the hallway mirror. She looked pale and shaken, which was perfect for the role she was playing. But behind her eyes she could see something Julian couldn't, cold, calculating fury. She followed him into the kitchen, her kitchen, with the granite countertops she had chosen and the backsplash she had installed herself. Patricia had already redecorated here too, covering Amelia's carefully chosen color scheme with cheap roosters and country-themed decorations. Wine? Julian asked, pulling a bottle from the refrigerator. Amelia shook her head. She needed to stay completely alert. Julian poured himself a large glass and sat across from her at the kitchen table. I've been thinking about what you said about needing time and space. And I realize I've been selfish. What do you mean? I've been so focused on helping my family that I forgot about your feelings. That's not fair to you. Amelia nodded encouragingly, hoping he would keep talking. The truth is, this whole situation has been more complicated than I let on. Patricia and Tony have been having serious financial problems, worse than I told you. They were about to lose their apartment, and the kids would have ended up in foster care. It was a compelling story, designed to appeal to Amelia's compassion. But she remembered what Detective Morrison had told her about Julian's previous targets. He always had a sob story to justify his theft. That must have been so stressful for you, she said. Julian's shoulders relaxed slightly. It was. And when that real estate opportunity came up, I saw a chance to help them and make us money at the same time. But I had to move fast, and I knew if I explained everything, you'd want to research it and think it over, and we'd lose the opportunity. What kind of real estate opportunity? Julian hesitated for just a moment. Commercial properties in Florida. Tony has connections down there, people who know about deals before they hit the market. Amelia filed that information away. Detective Morrison would be interested to know Julian was claiming connections in Florida. That sounds promising, she said. When will we see returns on the investment? Soon. Maybe a few months. The important thing is that Patricia's family is stable now, and we're going to make a lot of money. Julian reached across the table and took her hand. I know I should have discussed it with you first. But I also know that if I had, you would have said yes anyway because you're generous and you love me. The manipulation was so smooth, so practiced, that Amelia could see how his previous victims had fallen for it. Julian was making her complicit in her own victimization, suggesting that she would have agreed to the theft if only he had asked nicely. You're right, she said softly. I would have wanted to help Patricia's children. Julian squeezed her hand. I knew you'd understand once I explained everything properly. There's just one thing I'm still confused about. Julian's hand went still on hers. What's that? The paperwork for the house transfer. How were you able to do that without my signature? For a long moment, Julian said nothing. Amelia could practically see his mind working, trying to decide how much truth he could afford to tell. That's more complicated, he said finally. I'm not going anywhere. We have all night to talk. Julian drained his wine glass and poured another. Okay, but you have to promise not to get upset. I promise. I had to forge your signature. The admission hung in the air between them. Amelia felt her heart racing, but she kept her expression neutral. You forged my signature? I knew you'd say yes if you were here, but you were in Chicago and Patricia needed the security of knowing the house was really theirs. So I practiced your signature until I could do it well enough to fool the notary. Julian, that's illegal. Technically, yes. But morally? I was just doing what you would have done if you were here. The casual way he dismissed committing fraud made Amelia's stomach turn. But she nodded as if she understood. Have you had to forge my signature before? Another long pause. A few times for the investment paperwork. But only when you were traveling and we couldn't wait. How many times? Julian was getting uncomfortable now, shifting in his chair and avoiding her eyes. Does it matter? The important thing is that everything I did was for our benefit. I'm just trying to understand the whole situation. Maybe 15 or 20 times over the past year. But Amelia, you travel constantly. If I waited for you to be home to sign every piece of paperwork, we'd miss out on opportunities. 15 or 20 forgeries. Detective Morrison was going to be very interested in that number. What about Nina? Amelia asked quietly. Julian went completely still. What about her? That text message earlier. She seemed to know you pretty well. She's just a coworker. Julian, I'm trying to trust you here, but you need to be honest with me. Are you having an affair? The question hung between them like a loaded gun. Julian's face cycled through several expressions: denial, anger, calculation, and finally, something that might have been relief. Yes, he said quietly. I've been seeing Nina for a few months. Amelia let tears come to her eyes again. How could you? Because you're never here. Julian's voice rose. You're always working, always traveling, always putting your career before our marriage. Nina appreciates me. She makes time for me. So this is my fault? I'm not saying it's your fault, but when was the last time we had dinner together? When was the last time you took a weekend off just to spend time with me? It was classic abuser logic, turning his betrayal into her failure. But Amelia played along. You're right, she whispered. I have been working too much. Julian's anger faded as quickly as it had appeared. I didn't want to hurt you. That's why I didn't tell you about Nina. I thought maybe once your business was more established, you'd have more time for us, and things with Nina would just end naturally. Do you love her? Julian considered the question seriously. I care about her. But I love you, Amelia. You're my wife. Nina is just temporary. The callousness of his answer, reducing his affair to a temporary convenience, made Amelia want to scream. Instead, she nodded. What happens now? Now we fix our marriage. You scale back your travel, maybe hire someone to handle the day-to-day business operations. I'll end things with Nina. We'll move past this. And Patricia's family stays in the house? For now, yes. But we can look for a nice place for just us. Somewhere smaller, easier to maintain. Amelia stood up and walked to the window overlooking the garden her grandmother had planted. In the darkness, she could just make out the rose bushes Rose had tended so carefully, now overgrown and neglected. I need to use the bathroom, she said. Of course. You know where it is. As Amelia walked upstairs, she passed the master bedroom where she and Julian had slept for 5 years. The door was open, and she could see that Patricia had already moved her own things into the space. Amelia's clothes were gone, her books were gone, even her side of the bed had different pillows. In the bathroom, her bathroom, with the tile she had chosen and the mirror she had hung, she stared at her reflection and whispered to the recording device hidden under her blouse. "Did you get all that?" She couldn't hear any response, but she knew Detective Morrison and his team were listening to every word. By now, they had Julian confessing to forgery, adultery, and conspiracy to commit fraud. When she came back downstairs, Julian was on the phone in the kitchen, speaking in low, urgent tones. "I don't care what it costs," he was saying. "We need to move faster than planned." "Yes, she knows about the lawyer." "No, she doesn't suspect anything else, but we can't take chances." He hung up quickly when he saw Amelia. "Work call," he said with a forced smile. "Crisis at the office." "This late?" "You know how it is in real estate. Deals don't keep regular hours." But Amelia had been married to Julian for 5 years, and she knew his work schedule. Real estate agents in their city didn't take crisis calls at 9 o'clock at night. "I think I should go back to the hotel," she said. "Absolutely not." Julian's voice was sharp. "We're making progress here. I don't want to lose momentum." "Julian, I'm exhausted. This has been the hardest week of my life." "Then sleep here. In the guest room. We can continue talking in the morning." Again, it wasn't really a request. And this time, Julian moved between her and the front door. "I really would prefer." "Amelia." Julian's voice was quiet but firm. "You're staying here tonight." As he said it, Amelia heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the kitchen window, she could see Patricia getting out of a minivan with her 3 children. Perfect timing. Now Amelia was trapped in a house with Julian's entire family, and no one knew where she was except the FBI team listening to her wire. She hoped they were close by. Patricia walked through the front door like she owned the place, which Amelia supposed she now did, at least on paper. Her 3 children ages 8, 10, and 12 ran past Amelia without acknowledgement, as if she were a stranger in her own home. "How did the talk go?" Patricia asked Julian, not bothering to lower her voice. "Good. Amelia understands the situation now." Patricia looked at Amelia with something that might have been pity. "I'm sorry this has been so hard for you. But you'll see, this arrangement works better for everyone." "Where will I live?" Amelia asked, playing her role as the confused, abandoned wife. "There are some lovely condos downtown," Patricia said brightly. "Much more suitable for a single professional woman. But I'm not single. Julian and I are working things out." Patricia and Julian exchanged a look that made Amelia's blood run cold. "Of course you are," Patricia said. "I just meant, independent. Career-focused." Tony appeared in the doorway, still wearing his work clothes. He was a big man with calloused hands and suspicious eyes that immediately focused on Amelia. "She staying the night?" he asked Julian. "Yes. We have more to discuss in the morning." Tony nodded. "Kids, go upstairs. Adults need to talk." As the children disappeared upstairs, the atmosphere in the room changed completely. Gone was any pretense of family concern or innocent misunderstanding. Amelia found herself facing 3 people who were looking at her like a problem to be solved. "Sit down, Amelia," Tony said, and it definitely wasn't a request. She sat on the couch, Patricia's couch, and tried to look smaller and more vulnerable than she felt. "Julian told us you hired a lawyer," Patricia said. "Just to understand my options." "What kind of options?" Tony asked. "I don't know. That's why I hired her. This is all very confusing for me." Patricia sat down across from Amelia. "Here's the thing, sweetie. This situation is only confusing if you make it confusing. Julian explained everything to you. The house transfer was necessary to help my family. The money was invested to benefit everyone. You can accept that and move on, or you can make trouble for everyone." "I don't want to make trouble." "Good. Because making trouble would be very bad for you." The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Amelia felt the recording device under her blouse and hoped it was picking up every word. "What do you mean?" Tony leaned forward. "We mean that sometimes, when marriages fall apart, bad things happen to people's reputations. Business relationships get damaged. Credit gets ruined. People find out things that maybe they didn't want public." "What things?" "Well," Patricia said with false sweetness, "Julian mentioned that your business has some irregularities in the bookkeeping. Client money mixed with personal accounts, tax filings that might not be completely accurate. The kind of things that could ruin a marketing consultant's career if the wrong people found out." Amelia's heart sank. They were setting her up, creating false evidence of wrongdoing that they could use to destroy her reputation if she fought back. That's not true, isn't it? Julian pulled out a folder. Because I have documentation showing some very questionable financial practices. Things that might interest the IRS. He spread papers across the coffee table, bank statements and transaction records that had clearly been doctored to make Amelia's legitimate business practices look fraudulent. Of course, Julian continued, these irregularities could be explained as honest mistakes. Especially if you cooperate with resolving our current situation amicably. What does amicably mean? It means you drop the lawyer, Tony said. You accept that the house belongs to Patricia's family now. You don't make waves about the investments Julian made with your business money. And you move on with your life. And if I don't? Patricia smiled. Then things get very unpleasant for you. The IRS investigation, the damage to your business reputation, the divorce proceedings where all these financial irregularities come to light. You'll be lucky to get a job at McDonald's when we're done with you. Plus, Julian added, Nina has been recording some very interesting conversations about your business practices. Things you told me in confidence about cutting corners with client accounts, avoiding taxes, hiding income. She'd be a very credible witness in court. Amelia felt a surge of rage so powerful she almost broke character. They hadn't just stolen her money and her house, they had spent months creating evidence to frame her for crimes she had never committed. You've been planning this for a long time, she said quietly. We've been protecting our family, Patricia said. Sometimes that requires long-term thinking. Tony stood up and walked to the window. It's getting late. I think Amelia should get some rest. Big day tomorrow. What happens tomorrow? Tomorrow you call your lawyer and fire her, Julian said. Then you sign some paperwork making all of this official and legal. Nice and clean. And if I refuse? The three of them looked at each other and Amelia saw something that made her skin crawl. They had done this before. Many times. You won't refuse, Patricia said confidently. Because you're smart enough to know when you're beaten. As they escorted her upstairs to the guest room, her former home office, now stripped of everything that had made it hers, Amelia caught sight of herself in the hallway mirror again. She still looked pale and defeated, exactly the way they expected her to look. But behind her eyes she was calculating. They had made a crucial mistake tonight. In their confidence, they had admitted to creating false evidence, to witness tampering, to a criminal conspiracy that went far beyond simple fraud. Detective Morrison now had everything he needed to destroy them completely. Sleep well, Julian said as he closed the guest room door. Amelia heard the unmistakable sound of a lock clicking. She was trapped, but she wasn't helpless. She walked to the window and looked out at the garden where her grandmother had taught her that the most beautiful flowers often grew from the darkest soil. Tomorrow Julian and his family would find out what grew from the seeds they had planted tonight. Amelia barely slept. Every time she started to drift off, she would hear voices downstairs, Julian, Patricia, and Tony talking in low, urgent tones about plans and timelines and contingencies. She couldn't make out specific words, but the tone was unmistakably that of people coordinating a criminal enterprise. At 6 a.m, she heard cars pulling into the driveway. Multiple cars. By 6:15, someone was pounding on the front door. FBI. Open up. Amelia smiled for the first time in a week. She could hear chaos downstairs, running footsteps, doors slamming, Julian's voice raised in panic. The guest room door was still locked, but that didn't matter now. FBI. This is a search warrant. The front door burst open, and Amelia could hear Detective Morrison's voice directing his team. Julian Sterling, you're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit theft. Patricia Williams, Tony Williams, you're both under arrest for fraud and conspiracy. This is a mistake. Julian shouted. We haven't done anything wrong. Tell it to the judge, Morrison replied. There was a knock on the guest room door. Mrs. Sterling? This is Detective Morrison. Are you okay? I'm fine, but the door is locked. Stand back from the door. A moment later, the door flew open. Detective Morrison stood in the hallway with 2 FBI agents behind him. Are you hurt? No, but they threatened me last night. They have fake evidence they were planning to use against me. We heard everything. The recording device worked perfectly. As they escorted her downstairs, Amelia saw Julian in handcuffs by the front door. His face was a mask of rage and disbelief. Amelia, how could you do this? He called out. We're married. We're supposed to be a team. She stopped and looked at him, really looked at him for what she knew would be the last time. We were never a team, Julian. I was just your latest victim. You're going to regret this, he snarled, All pretense of love finally dropped. When this is over, you'll have nothing. Nina and I will make sure of that. Detective Morrison stepped between them. Actually, Julian, Nina's not going to be helping you with anything. She's been cooperating with us for the past month. Julian's face went white. That's impossible. Nina Rodriguez came to us after she figured out you were using her to commit fraud. Turns out she's not as stupid as you thought. She's been recording your conversations and documenting your criminal activities. She loves me. She loves her freedom more. In exchange for full cooperation, she's getting immunity from prosecution. As they led Julian away, he was still screaming about betrayal and revenge. But his voice got smaller and smaller until Amelia couldn't hear it anymore. Patricia and Tony were already in separate police cars. Patricia's children were being cared for by social services until relatives could be located. What happens now? Amelia asked. Now we search the house and gather evidence. This case is going to take down a criminal network that's been operating for years. Rebecca appeared at Amelia's side. Are you okay? I think so. Is it really over? The criminal case is just beginning, but your part in it is done. Julian and his family are going to prison for a very long time. Detective Morrison joined them. We found something you should see. He led them to Julian's home office, where FBI agents were photographing documents and seizing computer equipment. He kept detailed records of everything. Every victim, every forged signature, every dollar stolen. It's like he was proud of what he was doing. On Julian's desk, Amelia could see files labeled with women's names. Sarah Chin, Linda Williams, at least a dozen others. And at the bottom of the stack, a thick file labeled Amelia Sterling Phase 3. Phase 3? She asked. Detective Morrison opened the file. Phase 1 was gaining your trust and access to your accounts. Phase 2 was the systematic theft of your assets. Phase 3 was framing you for financial crimes and destroying your reputation so you couldn't fight back. The file contained the fake evidence Julian had shown her the night before, plus detailed plans for destroying her business relationships and making her appear unstable and vindictive. He was going to ruin my life completely. He tried to ruin your life, Rebecca corrected. But instead, he ruined his own. As the FBI continued their search, Amelia walked through her grandmother's house, seeing it clearly for the first time since this nightmare began. Patricia's cheap furniture looked shabby and temporary against Rose's solid craftsmanship. The country decorations looked ridiculous in rooms designed for elegance and comfort. How long before I can move back in? She asked. A few weeks, Detective Morrison said. We need to process the scene and untangle the property transfers. But Rebecca's already filed paperwork to have the fraudulent transfers reversed. What about my money? Most of it is recoverable. Julian was sloppy about hiding the stolen funds. Between asset forfeiture and restitution orders, you should get back almost everything he took. Amelia nodded, but she realized the money wasn't what mattered most anymore. What mattered was that Julian and his family would never hurt another woman the way they had hurt her and so many others. There's something else, Detective Morrison said. The other victims want to meet you. Sarah Chin flew in from Portland this morning. Linda Williams is driving down from Ohio. They want to thank you. Thank me? For being strong enough to fight back. For giving us the evidence we needed to get justice for all of them. That afternoon, Amelia sat in Rebecca's office with Sarah and Linda and 3 other women whose lives Julian's family had destroyed. They shared their stories, their pain, and finally, their hope that justice would be served. I never thought I'd get my life back, Sarah said. When Julian took everything from me, I felt like I'd never be able to trust anyone again. Me too, Linda agreed. But seeing him in handcuffs today, it feels like I can finally breathe again. As they talked, Amelia realized something important. Julian had tried to isolate her, to make her feel like she was alone and helpless. But she wasn't alone. She was part of a community of strong women who had survived his manipulation and would now help each other heal. That night, Amelia sat in her hotel room, the same hotel room where this journey had begun a week ago, and called her grandmother's sister in Atlanta. Aunt Rose, she said, I kept my promise. I protected the house. I know you did, baby girl. Your grandmother would be so proud. I think she was watching over me this whole time. She was. And now she can rest easy, knowing you're strong enough to handle anything life throws at you. As Amelia hung up the phone, she realized that Julian had been wrong about one thing. This experience hadn't broken her. It had revealed just how strong she really was. And tomorrow she would start building a life that no one could ever take away from her again. 3 months later, Amelia stood in the doorway of her grandmother's house, breathing in the familiar scent of rose polish and lavender sachets. The FBI had finished their investigation, the courts had reversed all fraudulent property transfers, and the house was officially hers again. But more than that, it felt like home again. She had spent the past month undoing all of Patricia's changes. The cheap furniture was gone, replaced with Rose's antique pieces that had been in storage. The country decorations had been removed, revealing the elegant crown molding and hardwood floors that had been hidden beneath them. The family photos were back on the mantel, showing 3 generations of strong women who had called this house home. In the garden, Amelia had hired a landscaper to restore her grandmother's rose bushes. They were blooming again, filling the air with the same sweet scent she remembered from childhood. Her phone rang. Rebecca's name appeared on the screen. "Good news," Rebecca said without preamble. "Julian's plea hearing is scheduled for next week. His lawyer is recommending he accept the prosecution's offer." "What's the offer?" 25 years in federal prison, no possibility of parole before 15. Patricia and Tony are getting similar sentences. Amelia felt a deep satisfaction at the news, but also something else, relief that it was finally over. What about the other victims? Full restitution for everyone. The court is also ordering Julian's family to pay damages for emotional distress and legal fees. Sarah Chin will get enough money to buy her own house. Linda Williams can afford to go back to school and finish her degree. That's wonderful. There's more. The FBI found evidence of at least 23 victims over the past 8 years. Julian's family stole more than $4 million total. This is going to be one of the biggest domestic fraud cases in state history. After hanging up with Rebecca, Amelia walked through the house, thinking about all the changes in her life since that night when she couldn't get her key to work in her own front door. Her business was thriving again. Once word got out about her experience, she had been flooded with calls from other business owners who wanted to hire someone they knew could handle a crisis. She had even started a new service specifically for people dealing with financial fraud and identity theft. More importantly, she had started a support group for women who had been victims of financial abuse. They met every Tuesday evening in the community center, sharing their stories and helping each other rebuild their lives. Sarah Chin had moved back from Portland and was now working as Amelia's business manager. Linda Williams was taking classes to become a financial advisor, specifically to help other fraud victims understand their rights and options. "We're like a sisterhood," Sarah had said at their last meeting. Julian thought he was destroying individual women, but instead he created a network of women who will never let anyone take advantage of us again. As evening approached, Amelia heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the window she could see a man getting out of a silver truck. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Michael Harrison was the architect she had hired to restore some of the house's original features. He was also, unexpectedly, becoming something more important in her life. "How does it look?" he called as he walked up the front steps. "Perfect," Amelia replied, opening the door to let him in. They had been taking things slowly. After Julian's betrayal, Amelia had been certain she would never trust another man. But Michael was patient and understanding. He never pushed for more than she was ready to give, and he had proven his trustworthiness in dozens of small ways over the past 2 months. "The contractor finished the master bathroom renovation today," he said, pulling out his phone to show her photos. "Want to see?" They walked upstairs together, and Amelia gasped when she saw the bathroom. Michael had restored it to exactly the way it had looked when her grandmother was alive, complete with the original clawfoot tub and vintage fixtures. "It's beautiful," she said, running her hand along the restored marble countertop. "Your grandmother had excellent taste. She had excellent judgment about everything, including people." Michael smiled. "Speaking of judgment, I have something to ask you." Amelia tensed slightly. Even after all this time, unexpected questions still made her nervous. "There's a house for sale across town," Michael said. "Victorian needs a lot of work, but the bones are good. I was thinking about buying it and restoring it myself." "That sounds like a great project. I was wondering if you'd like to help me design the restoration. As a business partner, I mean. We could flip it together." Amelia considered the offer. Working with Michael on a business project would be a safe way to spend more time with him while keeping clear professional boundaries. "I'd like that," she said. "Good. Because I was also wondering if you'd like to have dinner with me tomorrow night. Nothing fancy, just that little Italian place downtown." Amelia looked at Michael's face, searching for any sign of the manipulation she had learned to recognize in Julian. But Michael's expression was open and honest, with no hidden agenda behind his invitation. "I'd like that too," she said. As they walked back downstairs, Amelia's phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, her heart raced even after 3 months. Unexpected messages still triggered anxiety. But this message was from Nina Rodriguez. "Saw the news about Julian's plea deal. Thank you for being brave enough to fight back. I'm sorry I was part of hurting you, even unintentionally." Amelia showed the message to Michael. "Julian's ex-girlfriend," she explained. "She helped the FBI build their case. Are you going to respond?" Amelia thought about it for a moment, then typed back, "Thank you for choosing to do the right thing." That took courage too. As they reached the front door, Michael paused. "Amelia, can I ask you something personal?" Her defenses went up slightly. "What? Are you happy?" The question caught her off guard. Was she happy? 3 months ago, she would have said happiness was impossible after everything Julian had put her through. But now, standing in her grandmother's house with a man who treated her with respect and kindness, surrounded by friends who understood her journey, running a business that was more successful than ever. "Yes," she said, surprised by the truth of it. "I think I am." "Good. You deserve to be happy." After Michael left, Amelia made herself a cup of tea and sat on her grandmother's front porch, watching the sun set over the garden Rose had planted so many years ago. Tomorrow, Julian would accept his plea deal and begin serving a sentence that would keep him in prison until he was an old man. Patricia and Tony would face similar fates. The money they had stolen would be returned to their victims, and the lives they had destroyed would be rebuilt. But tonight, Amelia was simply grateful to be home, surrounded by memories of love and protected by walls that could never be taken from her again. She raised her teacup in a toast to her grandmother's memory. "Thank you for teaching me that the most important things in life can't be stolen," she said quietly. "They can only be given freely or built with your own hands." As if in response, a gentle breeze stirred the rose bushes, filling the evening air with the sweet scent of new blooms. 1 year later, Amelia stood at the podium in the downtown conference center, looking out at an audience of 200 women. The annual Rebuild and Rise conference had grown from her small Tuesday night support group into a statewide organization helping victims of financial abuse. "A year ago," she began, "I thought my life was over. I had lost my home, my savings, and my trust in other people. I felt like I would never be whole again." In the front row, she could see Sarah Chin and Linda Williams, both of whom had become close friends and business partners. In the middle section, she spotted Detective Morrison and Rebecca Martinez, who now served on the board of her nonprofit foundation. "But I learned something important during that terrible time. We are not defined by what is taken from us. We are defined by what we choose to build after the theft." The audience erupted in applause. These were women who understood exactly what she meant. Some were still in the early stages of recovery, still fighting legal battles and rebuilding their finances. Others, like Amelia, had moved beyond survival into thriving. Today, I want to share some specific strategies for not just surviving financial abuse, but transforming the experience into strength and wisdom. As she spoke, Amelia caught sight of Michael in the back of the room. He was holding a bouquet of roses from her grandmother's garden, waiting to congratulate her after her speech. They had been dating for 8 months now, taking things slowly but steadily, building something real and healthy together. Last week, he had asked if she would consider moving in with him after his house renovation was complete. It was a big step, but Amelia found herself excited about the possibility rather than terrified. Michael had proven over and over that he respected her independence and supported her goals. "The most important thing I learned," Amelia continued, "is that healing is not a destination. It's an ongoing process of choosing courage over fear, trust over suspicion, and hope over despair." After her speech, Amelia was surrounded by women wanting to share their stories, ask for advice, or simply say thank you. She spent an hour listening, encouraging, and connecting women with resources that could help them. Finally, Michael appeared at her elbow with the roses. "Beautiful speech," he said, kissing her cheek. "Your grandmother would be proud. I think she would be. Ready to go home? Actually, I have a surprise for you first." Michael led her outside to his truck, where a large gift box sat in the passenger seat. "What's this?" "Open it and see." Inside the box was a small bronze plaque that read, "The Rose Williams Memorial Garden in honor of all women who plant seeds of strength for future generations." "Michael, this is beautiful. But what's it for?" "Come on, I'll show you." They drove to the community center where Amelia's support group met every Tuesday. But instead of going inside, Michael led her around to the back of the building, where a small courtyard had been under construction for the past month. The space had been transformed into a beautiful memorial garden, with rose bushes, benches, and walking paths. In the center was a fountain surrounded by plaques bearing the names of women who had overcome financial abuse. The community center board approved the project last month, Michael explained. Sarah and Linda helped design it, and Rebecca handled all the legal paperwork. The garden is dedicated to your grandmother's memory, but it's also a space where women can come to find peace and strength. Amelia walked through the garden, reading the plaques and running her hands over the rose bushes that reminded her so much of her grandmother's garden. "It's perfect," she whispered. "There's one more thing," Michael said, pointing to a bench near the fountain. Amelia walked over and saw a small brass plate attached to the back of the bench. For Amelia Sterling, who turned her pain into purpose and her healing into hope for others. She sat down on the bench and began to cry, not from sadness, but from overwhelming gratitude for the life she had built from the ashes of Julian's betrayal. Michael sat beside her and took her hand. "I have something else to tell you," he said quietly. Amelia looked at him, suddenly nervous. "What?" "I love you." The words hung in the air between them. It was the first time either of them had said it, though Amelia had been feeling it for months. "I love you too," she said, and meant it completely. "I know we're taking things slowly and I don't want to rush anything. But I want you to know that I'm in this for the long haul. Whatever you need, however long it takes, I'm not going anywhere." Amelia squeezed his hand. "I'm not going anywhere either." As they sat in the garden together, Amelia thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. Julian's betrayal had nearly destroyed her, but it had also revealed strength she didn't know she possessed. It had connected her with other women who understood her pain and shared her determination to help others. Most importantly, it had taught her the difference between a partner who takes and a partner who gives, between someone who diminishes your dreams and someone who helps you build them. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Sarah. "Saw the news. Julian's parole application was denied. He'll serve the full 15 years minimum. Justice served." Amelia showed the message to Michael, then deleted it without responding. Julian was no longer part of her story except as a cautionary tale she shared with other women. He had become irrelevant to her happiness. "Ready to go home?" Michael asked. "Yes, but let's stop by the house first. I want to pick some roses for the dinner table." They drove to Amelia's grandmother's house, where the garden was in full bloom. As they cut roses together, Amelia remembered Rose's words about the most important things in life being built with your own hands. She had built a new life from nothing. She had built a business that helped other people. She had built friendships that would last forever. And now, maybe she was building something beautiful with Michael. That evening, as they sat at her grandmother's dining table with fresh roses in a crystal vase between them, Amelia felt completely at peace. The house was filled with love and laughter again. The garden bloomed with new life. And she was surrounded by people who valued her for who she was, not what she could give them. Julian had tried to take everything from her, but in the end, he had given her something invaluable. The knowledge that she was strong enough to survive anything and wise enough to build something better from the wreckage. As the sun set over the garden her grandmother had planted so many years ago, Amelia raised her wine glass in a toast. "To new beginnings," she said. "To new beginnings," Michael agreed. And in the golden light of evening, surrounded by the scent of roses and the promise of tomorrow, Amelia Sterling finally understood what true happiness felt like. It felt like coming home to a life she had built with her own hands, protected by love that could never be stolen, and shared with people who would never betray her trust. It felt like victory.